Today what we saw was a hackathon for the toy industry. And the Prime Minister actually interacted with many of the founders of these startups and all of those who have come out with these new board games, video games, all of that. In one case, he was so impressed that Narendra Modi said it should be used even by the Indian Defence Forces. We're going to talk about toys. Now, toys is also a segment which was very important for the government since last year for making it Atmanirbhar. Before we go any further, here's the Prime Minister.
आज हम अपनी आवश्यकता के भी लगभग 80% खिलौने विदेशों से आयात करते हैं, यानी इन पर देश का करोड़ों रुपये बाहर जा रहा है। असल में ये टॉयज, ये गेम्स हमारी मानसिक शक्ति, हमारी क्रिएटिविटी और हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था पर ऐसे अनेक पहलुओं को प्रभावित करते हैं। जितने भी ऑनलाइन या डिजिटल गेम्स आज मार्केट में उपलब्ध हैं, उनमें से अधिकतर का कंसेप्ट भारतीय नहीं है, हमारी सोच से मेल नहीं खाता है। आप भी जानते हैं कि इसमें अनेक गेम्स के कंसेप्ट या तो वायलेंस को प्रमोट करते हैं या फिर मेंटल स्ट्रेस का कारण बनाते हैं। इसलिए हमारा दायित्व है कि ऐसे वैकल्पिक कॉन्सेप्ट डिजाइन हो जिसमें भारत का मूल चिंतन जो संपूर्ण मानव कल्याण से जुड़ा हुआ हो, वो हो, तकनीकी रूप में सुपीरियर हो, फन भी हो, फिटनेस भी हो, दोनों को बढ़ावा मिलता रहे। और मैं ये भी स्पष्ट देख रहा हूं कि डिजिटल गेमिंग के लिए जरूरी कंटेंट और कॉम्पिटेंस हमारे यहां भरपूर है। हमारे टॉयज और गेम्स इंगेज भी करें, एंटरटेन भी करें और एजुकेट भी करें, ये हमें सुनिश्चित करना है।
Okay, so this was an intention of the government since last year to make toys an Atmanirbhar sector. My next guest is someone who actually quit the very lucrative consulting industry to become an entrepreneur. You've seen him here on Startup Central. He's back, Dhwanil of Skillmatics, who recently also raised funds from Sequoia Capital. Today, we're not talking about fundraising, but we're talking about the huge potential that we have in the country to also export our toys and games to the rest of the world, something that Skillmatics actually pioneered from the country by tying up with Amazon. Dhwanil, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us. You're seeing a hackathon, being announced by the Prime Minister himself. The results will only be known in a couple of days and all of that. But give us a sense that in the last 1 year, since we've seen restrictions on imports from toys, particularly from China, what has the year meant for companies like yours, founders like you?
Hi, Nayantara. Really nice to be here again. And I think that, the government has just continued its extremely strong push on building India as a destination for toy development and design. And ever since the government has taken measures to ensure that Indian startups, Indian manufacturers, and Indian brands can actually not only cater to the domestic market, which frankly, before these interventions were launched by the government, was flooded with 80% of Chinese imports. There's been a tremendous growth in the entire ecosystem. We're seeing, obviously at a company level, Skillmatics has grown, I think 5x year on year. I think what we are also seeing is that there has been a much broader development of a creator ecosystem. And I think today's hackathon had, if I'm not mistaken, close to 20,000 innovative ideas. And I think that it's an extremely exciting time for this sector because India has no dearth of creativity and innovation. And I think there's finally an enabling ecosystem to facilitate the growth for that.
Can you tell us a little bit of the kind of games from India that are doing well overseas? If I were to talk about Skillmatics, for example, and you are seen as an example of a small business that is exporting to multiple countries. You've been seen as one of the popular brands and sellers in the United States as well on Amazon. What kind of games from India are doing well? What kind of innovation have you folks, for example, done?
I think India has some great creative talent, right? Both in design as well as in content and IP. I think what the world has seen with this pandemic is a lot of focus on more family time, lesser screen time, and the kind of games that we've seen a lot of success with, especially in the US, have been games that families can bond together, play together indoors, outdoors when they're traveling. And I think that's just a larger, I would say shift in consumption patterns where, parents today are looking for, engaging activities that are not necessarily only on the screen, that they can play, in person with their families. And what has been a success factor for us is focusing on products and games that are not just meaningless play, right? I think we're focused on providing families with meaningful play experiences, one where their kids can actually learn and at the same time be engaged and have fun. And that's, if the clip that you just played of the Prime Minister, I think that's exactly what he said, right? That in today's day and age, I think games that are not only educational, but also fun, I think are what consumers are really looking for, both in India and in the US.
Okay, and out of the innovations that we've seen today, for example, I'm sure you were also tracking the hackathon quite closely. We'll know the results later. We heard some examples that were using Indian culture. There were some that were using that, the Prime Minister thinks should be used by the defense forces. Were they less about violence, which is usually what is now associated with games, and more about skill?
Yes, I mean, so I think that the Prime Minister has very clearly articulated that he would love games that or ideas that focus on Indian heritage, focus on using technology responsibly, and promoting education, skill development, family bonding. I think these were the sort of cultural values that we saw in the hackathon. I thought there were some incredibly innovative ideas. Which just shows the extent of the creative potential that we have in India. And I'm actually quite certain that this is only going to spurt an entire new wave of startups and innovation in this sector.
Okay. With that, Dhanil, I'd like to thank you for joining us here live right here on Startup Central. Toys, which has been seen as one of the winners of the Atmanirbhar package, and today a hackathon also being announced. There was a challenge thrown open last year also by the government saying, why shouldn't India, the home of chess, for example, be pioneering all of this? Let's move on now, and we have to talk about the Reliance Industries AGM, don't we? Yes, there's going to be a brand new smartphone built in collaboration with Google. Remember, Google had pumped in money in Jio last year, as much as Facebook, to build this smartphone feature, which incidentally is going to be voice first. So irrespective of the regional language, a user should not be facing issues. Plus, Mukesh Ambani himself announcing not done with M&As when it comes to Jio and Reliance Retail. Green energy being seen as the next big bet. A conglomerate which has pioneered fossil fuels, whether it's by exploration, production, or by refining, making a massive play for green energy. That's also been another theme of the pandemic. Look at Elon Musk and Tesla. Here's Mukesh Ambani.
And fifth, we will continue acquiring businesses to heighten our offering and experience to customers, sharpen our omni-channel capabilities, drive operating efficiencies, and strengthen our talent pool. Recent acquisitions include leading physical digital commerce platforms like NetMeds, Urban Ladder, and Zivame.
And of course, stay tuned to ET now. We are analyzing the AGM for you, the big bets, the return of the capex cycle also. Let's shift gears and talk about another tech company which is in the matrimony business. I'm talking about matrimony.com. How has the second wave been? How are weddings taking place? How are matches happening? Listen in.
There are definitely a digital adoption taking place across the segment. Definitely in matrimony also, we have seen a good adoption of people coming to online and using our services. So we expect that momentum to continue. And our growth also was in a way that contributed by the increasing number of people signing up for the matchmaking platform. And we expect the trend to continue. The thing is that today we are seeing that broad-based growth across the tiers, and we're seeing the growth in a tier 2 market and tier 3 market as well. And so definitely there is increased adoption of singles using a platform. Today, almost 70% of the profiles are created by the individuals or singles themselves. And we see that the continuous growth of singles adopting online matchmaking services. The thing is that the growth is not limited to any particular geography. And today the digital adoption, it's happening across India. So we see from that within tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And also more importantly, we see that increase in the number of females signing up the platform. So that's also another interesting trend. So the growth is not limited to any single factor. The growth is fairly broad-based and across the segment, across the tiers. And the good thing that, as I said, that the increase in female adopting online matrimony is definitely it's a good trend. There was an increase in marketing. We look at that the marketing spend used to be less than 1 crore, and the marketing now is more than 1 crore. We're spending almost 120 crore, and this year probably may spend around 150 to 150 crore or 160 crore on.
That's how you make matches during coronavirus. With that, it's a wrap. Many thanks for watching.